We were physically isolated, we were socially isolated, we were mentally isolated. Every aspect of our lives just became so lonely.
In the past few years, I've gone from like knowing about suicide and knowing that people do commit suicide to knowing people who have.
I see a lot of my friends like with body image issues due to social media. Everyone has filters and like can change the way you look. I have a friend with an eating disorder.
I have several family members that have mental illnesses, bipolar, depression, anxiety, panic disorder. I have that. And we've experienced a lot of not being able to get the help we necessarily need.
We're all stuck in our individual households, and every single household has a problem. Also, it takes a toll on the people that live on the reservation.
People, they just like drinking, smoking, doing all that bad stuff. They're bad influence to me and the kids out of school.
I think we're in a mental health crisis as a nation, honestly. Right now, things are very tense across generations.
It's been increasing since COVID.
As a teacher who taught through the pandemic and is experiencing a couple years after, I still feel the ripple effects. The classroom is different.
Kids are under pressure, adults are under pressure. It seems like we're almost in a pressure cooker to some extent, and the pressure keeps building and building and building. It's been a lot this year. It's been a lot.
Funding for this program is provided by the Hughes Charitable Foundation. Energized by love and faith and inspired by the vibrant community around us, Hughes Charitable Foundation supports organizations that are directly helping those across the state of Wyoming who need it most. A private donation from Jack and Carol Nunn. The John P. Elbogen Foundation, empowering the people of Wyoming to lead healthy lives in thriving communities. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming, a proud partner with Wyoming PBS and other community organizations to provide funding for education to raise awareness of the mental health crisis in Wyoming, reduce stigma around mental health, and connect people to available care that promotes positive mental health and hopefully saves lives.
We are currently in a no-pass period. Students that are currently in the hallway can proceed to the classroom or an office area.
My name is Brooklyn Terrell. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a sophomore here at East High School in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm from a military family. My dad's in the Air Force. We've been living here for the past 3 years now. I definitely agree with the cowboy code. I mean, my grandpa was a cowboy, so he grew up on a farm. The cowboy code to me is definitely just kind of how to be a good person a little bit. It's kind of like the 10 Commandments, just really simple. And so I really like it. I lean on it. The speech and debate kids, they're usually the really smart kids, and they kind of got everything going on for them. They do a lot of competitions.
This is the best speech and debate team in the whole world. It's a ragtag group of kids. We call it the Lost and Found at East High School because there are people who already know what they're doing and people who have no idea what they're doing, but everyone is welcome. This team is also ranked in the top 25 out of about 3,500 schools in the country. So this is a top 1% group of kids.
I volunteered to lead a discussion about mental health with the speech and debate team. I hope to learn the different things that my friends are going through, because even though we talk all the time, we still have things that we keep to ourselves. So let's address the big elephant in the room. What do you wish more adults understood about us in mental health?
I think that a lot of adults just jump to actually solving it and not really listening to what's happening.
Yeah, sometimes I wish people would, instead of saying, oh, why don't you do this, or look on the bright side, or whatever, like it was more of a like, I hear you and I understand you.
Yeah. Being a teenager is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
My name is Bobo Bronco, and I'm 19 years old. I grew up on the Wind River Indian Reservation for my whole life. Life is hard on the res, I'm not gonna lie. In school, a lot of my friends, it was more of a trend to be sad.
Depression and suicide is probably one of the biggest things that a lot of people around here deal with, teenagers. I think it's something that definitely goes unnoticed and unattended to quite a bit.
It's really a critical time for Native youth, and we're trying to give our kids tools and skills to get through this time.
After COVID, we've seen a huge shift on the amount of kids and teenagers experiencing mental health disorders. Especially for teenagers, teenage kids, they need to be connected with their peers. Social media was one of the biggest outlets that adolescents had, which is good and bad. I see more bad than good.
Danny is an amazing, outspoken person. These are the perfect kids to be having a conversation about mental health because they are activated about it. They approach me as a coach and they want to speak about these issues. So these kids are people who are writing, researching, reading. They're experts. They know more than I do about their particular topic.
I believe we are in a mental health crisis, especially with young people, but not just with young people, with everyone. I think our world is just suffering a lot. There's a lot of reasons why.
Climate change, anxiety, I'm in different science classes and it's always the earth is gonna die by 2050. Well, I graduate 25, so that doesn't give my kids a lot of time.
The lockdown at the pandemic, it made it easier for people to communicate via text or Snapchat, but harder to communicate in person.
I don't think that older people understand what it's like to grow up with social media. I think it just has such a
And pandemic.
Oh yeah, living through the pandemic, especially with social media and all that.
I think social media is definitely a double-edged sword.
So true.
Because on one end, when you don't have anybody to talk to and nobody will take you seriously, you can research and look up what you want, or you can make new friends through online games and stuff. But also it can teach you misinformation.
You're only seeing one part of someone's life.
Right. I also think this is so pressing right now because no other generation has experienced it like us, and we're seeing the effects of it.
We're pioneering it.
Yeah, we really are. In the speech and debate community, there was a suicide that really rocked Wyoming. It was really hard on the community because the Wyoming speech and debate community is super tight-knit.
It's sort of surreal that people that's very close to you are going through this type of stuff.
This school year, to most of the staff and most of the adults in the building at least, feels very different than other school years have felt. We're a large high school by Wyoming standards, but not large by a lot of other standards. Our enrollment varies throughout the year, but we have well over 1,500 students as a solid number throughout.
The big shocker was when we came back from COVID to being in person, we anticipated a lot of high anxiety, high depression, and we didn't see that right off the bat. Actually, everybody was kind of euphoric. We had this sense of they were just happy to be back to somewhat normal. And then all of a sudden, it just very drastically started declining.
We have more students in acute crisis. We have more students who are struggling with managing relationships and conflict and some of those soft skills and behaviors that support learning. It seems like students are struggling with resilience. They encounter some hardships and it feels like they have less and less tools at their disposal to help them overcome some of those hardships.
At sophomore or junior in high school, they come back from the transition and they might be acting more like a freshman.
We saw kids just coming out with massive anxiety, depression, a lot of disassociation.
Those kids needed face-to-face contact.
Kids get into situations where they're really comfortable communicating via social media apps and things like that, and they don't have that same nonverbal feedback that they get in person, and they lose a little bit of that ability to pick up social cues, and sometimes they end up having conversations they maybe wouldn't have if they were in person because there's that little bit of distance, right? Nobody's going to punch you in the face if you say something snotty and, because they can't reach through the phone. I think it changes how kids communicate. And again, I mean, that's when your brain's developing and you're learning how to interact with people and how to take care of yourself. And if you're getting a lot of input from other people that's cruel, it's hard to pull yourself out of that.
I've worked with students and families with suicide attempts more than in any other year. We've had suicide attempts here at school.
Recently, I had 3 students in my office alone that were in the hospital at one time. Some kids, it's just referring out for counseling. Some kids, we're sending them to the ER right away for further evaluation, and then they're going to a longer-term treatment facility. It's across the board, kids you wouldn't even expect. Great kids with great families just struggling. We get a lot of calls from parents going, I don't know what to do. My kid has changed.
So what are some things you get sick of adults talking about whenever they hear youth mental health?
Any sentence that starts with, oh, well, back in my day.
You guys have it so simple. You guys have it so easy.
The more you scroll on social media, the more you expect of yourself, and it's usually just really unachievable standards.
I follow a lot of all-state athletes. Why am I not an all-state athlete? 5 people get that. Let's be mature about this.
And their solution to that is to take away the phone.
Yeah.
Because that is the root of the problem.
I mean, getting rid of the phone literally gets rid of their connection to everybody.
Parenting in the current time in history is very different than parenting has ever looked before. Everybody's just not really sure how to address these pressures. We're in a very different time, and so some of the old strategies that maybe used to work aren't as effective or aren't effective at all. My hope is that we figure out new ways, innovative ways to address what's going on here.
Having communication at your fingertips presents a large challenge for our students on top of all the other social issues you have, especially at a middle school age.
You have kids who are at that age where, hormones are in play. Coping skills are still being learned, and your executive functioning is still forming. We know that doesn't form until early 20s.
Students and I often have conversations about what it was like when I was in middle school and what it was like for them now, or what it is like for them now.
We maybe didn't have that kind of access to information, and so we don't know how to help our youth navigate what they're faced with.
Kids can track your location at any moment if you allow them to, as opposed to when I was a kid. We had to be pretty creative about how we found each other if we were out on a Friday night, a Saturday night.
When I was in high school, we didn't even have cell phones. I don't think I even got my first cell phone until I was almost 30.
If things weren't going well for me at school, let's say, for example, if I was being bullied, I could go home and get away from it. With social media, it's on all the time.
I can walk by a classroom before school is even starting, and there will be several kids sitting in there. No one's talking to each other. They're just on their phones.
Yeah, there's a lot of influencers on social media. There's a lot of teenagers that are misguided, and social media tends to kind of come in and fill a blank. One of the big things I feel like is anxiety. You could start comparing yourself. You see all everyone's best experiences, and why don't I look like that? I just started having almost panic attacks. Couldn't sleep for 2 weeks.
Kids can be sitting in the classrooms and just trying to mind their own business and do classwork. Someone's taking a picture of them, posting it on a social media page, worst dressed or worst hair day. And here this kid's just trying to do their stuff. Sadly, we're even seeing with suicide attempts where almost they're trying to outdo or one up. They're getting pretty outrageous in some of the attempts, I think, just to seek, get the most attention with that.
Why does Wyoming have the #1 suicide rate throughout the United States?
I think it's a hard place to live with the climate, because seasonal depression, that's a thing. I think as a state, we have a mentality to be tough and don't talk about your issues.
Bullying happens way more often than you might really think.
I dealt with a lot of bullying.
because people always secretly record people and post it on social media to make fun of them. Made me feel really left out.
A lot of our children here go to school primarily with Native Americans K through 12 or K through 8. So they're the majority. And then once they go to a non-Indian school, they're automatically a minority. And then they face all those challenges that they got to work through.
We just see it as funny or as a joke. And the person who's receiving that hate is like really hurting. There's so many videos, a lot of like, slurs going around. And I remember scrolling through Instagram and it was some people blackfacing, like saying the N-word and stuff. And I just didn't know how to respond. I was just shocked because like kids who are adolescents are scrolling through Instagram and TikTok and learning this stuff and thinking it's okay. I like kids in the locker room when I was doing PE, they, say the N-word. And, like I'm the only black person in that locker room. So if I did say something about it and they're like, oh, just a joke, it's fine. Like, what do I respond to that?
Nah, sitting on chite, inanai. I'm Allison Sage, a Northern Arapaho here from the Wind River Reservation. We've had generations of trauma that we go through.
They deal with the animosity between communities, the loss of their identity. There's a lot of shaming on the internet, and that brings down the kids' self-esteem.
Lack of housing, lack of, just basic infrastructure.
Lack of job opportunities and, activities for youth, adults even.
There's a lot of hopelessness there.
Can't really trust nobody but yourself. Whenever you feel that hurt, you automatically turn to like something that could feel that pain, which is drugs and alcohol. So that's what a lot of people do, is feel that pain with a temporary happiness.
I was talking about this earlier with Mr. Viney. It's like the root cause of why people do drugs is not because of some like out there theory that there's something wrong with them. It's that they're doing it mostly to fill in a pain that or an issue that they couldn't fill in somewhere else.
I have like a lot of family members who live in like super rural Wyoming, like super small towns, and they live like over a half hour away from the nearest like grocery store or hospital, and I know a lot of them have turned to like kind of substance abuse to deal with that like sense of isolation that they feel, and one of them ultimately died of suicide. And I think it's like the large contributing factor is just like how alone they feel and their lack of access to the resources they need.
In Wyoming, you're weak if you're depressed, so you do drugs. And you're weak because you're doing drugs. So you hide doing drugs and people don't know what you're going through. It's just not like you have to hide and hide and hide and hide, and nobody knows who you are.
In Wyoming, the youth that identify as queer are still seeing families that don't understand what is going on. We have queer youth that have been kicked out of their houses, which just leads to many issues. The unfortunate social media, we just see constant bullying. And right now we're personally really trying to deal with suicide. It's a tricky one for kids these days.
It's really hard for older generations to be able to analyze and gain the perspectives of newer generations, but I think the one thing that everyone has to do is just put in the effort. You have to be able to put in the effort before you can go ahead and start jumping towards all these different conclusions.
Those like really small, tight-knit communities can be really beneficial for some people, but if you are not a part of that community, it makes it really hard to even like talk about it or find someone who understands you.
Because if you're not normal, you're just weird at that point. For a lot of people, you're in the lines of the unknown. Just being able to accept that these lines are going to be blurred, that's a huge first step into fixing this.
The way that we prevent suicide just across the board is by building connections, building communities.
Mental health is a huge issue for Native youth because we have trust issues, and the horses help us trust.
There's a lot of abandonment. And like people don't understand that, or like adults don't understand that. Cause I'm still a teenager and I feel abandoned all the time. Well, I kind of was abandoned, but that's where like a lot of my depression came from, was abandonment.
Bless each and every one of us in the circle. Bless these children so they'll be safe through this school year. And they'll have someone to love them and take care of them.
I just recently experienced depression because one of my closest childhood friends died. Yeah, and then we're like brothers. My mom passed away a year ago. And then my friend passed away, and then a couple of my other friends passing away, so it's like kind of hard.
Makes me feel mad. Makes me feel mad because some people have more of a privilege, I'd say, of having parents and having a home and family to go to. And it's kind of hard. It's hard knowing the fact that there's like little few people in my family left.
We're not an organized 501c3. We just did it because we know how good the horses are and to us in our healing.
You're learning how to control a horse, be dominant with the horse. Kind of teaches you how to learn how to take control in your life too.
They got to have confidence to get on a horse. And so there's a lot of teachings in there. And they don't know it, but they're becoming leaders themselves as they ride.
Whenever you take off or whatever, when you start running, you feel powerful.
They're just like us. They understand what we're saying and stuff, take care of you, and if you take care of them.
They look at you, you look back at them, you can just see them. That, I don't know, I just trust them.
We tell them that anybody in the circle can help you. And with that, we can lead off to other resources.
I think getting kids involved in different community organizations or different school organizations is the first step, but I don't think that's the only step.
One thing I've noticed in working with kids, anytime you provide structure, they thrive. And I think that's the same with social media use and cell phone use. And I always tell parents, please check out what your kid is looking at. Having that relationship with your kid and being able to sit down and talk about these things and then develop some structure around that and some boundaries is super important.
I'm really proud of education in Wyoming. We often get people from other states that come in just for our school system. Many schools in Wyoming have social emotional programs embedded into the curriculum, which didn't exist 4 years ago.
I would always tell people about counseling that we sometimes overthink it. It's just a conversation with somebody that's really smart in helping you work through a problem.
We need more help, and I think every state is saying that. There's just a shortage of mental health providers.
My family members had to go to Billings, Montana. We've looked at places in Denver, Colorado. We've looked at treatment centers all over the country, but they're just not feasible.
Parents are calling us and they're like, my kid needs counseling. I've called everywhere. It's like a 4-month wait list.
One of the positive trends is an increased awareness around mental health, a reduction in the stigma. I'm not saying that there isn't still some stigma attached, but I think the stigma is less.
When we think about mental health, every year students get a physical for playing sports in school. We rarely have them do a mental health check. That's half of the mind-body connection. We adults need to model what it looks like to be vulnerable and be willing to seek out mental health resources.
There are some days that are tough where it's hard to be optimistic, but on the whole, I think I'm pretty optimistic.
It's very easy to get a kid connected to something. Very often people will say that kids are apathetic these days, and I just don't see that at all. I think that they care very much. They just need to get in touch with something that they feel like they can work on and do well. We talk a lot about how adults are here to help kids, but the kids are absolutely helping the adults here.
I think listening is key. We just need to
Be there. Like, you don't need to say anything, just be there.
High school kids in Wyoming are looking for a safe person to offer resources, guidance, help them navigate, help them talk to their parents, their peers.
If you're willing to admit like you need help and you're not doing too well, like that's a brave thing to say because it's hard. Like people may look at you different, but it's important to get it done.
We know with teenagers, the first person they're most likely to tell when they're struggling is not an adult, it's not a parent, it's usually a peer. We have a text message service now called Safe to Tell. You can text anything to this line, right? If you know a friend that's in trouble or something's going on, grab your phone. We know they have them.
We're strong for showing who we are. We are strong because we are talking about this.
I don't think I would be the person I am today without communities like Speech and Debate.
For me, speech is somewhere I can be myself around.
We get to be a part of a team, we get to win trophies, but what sets it apart is we get to share what matters most to us. And I think that aspect of it requires also that we listen and we understand the people around us and we empathize with them and become an even tighter community.